Hi everyone, it's Jan with What You Make It, and I am back with another project in our fall project series. Today I want to show you a couple of projects that I have created recently using vellum. And the technique I want to show you is that I have embossed using embossing powders on here. And this project is the one that I'm really going to focus on, but I'm going to show you how to do the embossing. This particular project started in with a whole different idea in mind. I had a really fun stamp set. This is a My Mind's Eye doily set, and I don't know about you, but I'm totally obsessed with doilies right now. And I thought I would make a fun fall background for my card with that. And I did, but it was so very bright. Little too bright for me. And I put some leaves on it thinking that would stamp, I'd stamp some leaves. Let me get that up, you can kind of see through there. And I still wasn't loving it. It wasn't bad, it was just very, very, very bright. And I'd had the vellum out working on this little flag banner. And I put a piece of vellum over my stamped background, and it just kind of made it softer and a little muted, and I really liked it. So then I took it to the next level and decided to cut out this word thankful. I have a set of dies. These are from Paper Tray Ink, and it's the Counting My Blessings words, and there's 3 words in the set. One is thankful, one is grateful, and I think the other is blessed. Great words. I love them. And so, yes. So blessed, thankful, and grateful. And so I thought what I would do is cut out the word thankful in the vellum and let the brighter shade of the brighter part of the background come through. And you know what? It still wasn't my favorite. So then I thought I would put let me grab, so here's what that looked like. And I thought, well, I'll put just a strip of that paper behind it. And still not my favorite. So I ended up cutting the word out of the paper and putting it down inside. And I love it. So let me show you how I actually made this card. And we'll do a little background stamping. We'll do a little embossing on stamping and embossing on our vellum. A couple of great techniques. I hope you'll stick around for putting the card together. I'll be right back. A stamp set like this is great for doing your own stamped background because the elements relate well to each other. You have different sizes where you can fill in little gaps, and I'm going to show you a couple of techniques to make your own background. I love this stamp set and had a lot of fun creating the background. So I've mounted my stamps up, and I've chosen a family of colors. I wanted a range of colors going from kind of a yellow to maybe a russet orange. This one is called Terracotta Tile. But just find a range of colors that you want to work with. If you're using different sizes stamp, probably working with a different color so that there's some contrast. You want some lights and some darks. So usually use at least 3 different colors, but you can go up to about 4 if you're using different sizes. So we're going to start with our largest stamp. I'm not going to use the darkest color with the largest stamp because then it would be overpowered with both the size and the color. So I'm going to use the second to the lightest color for my largest stamp. And when I'm inking a big stamp like this, I turn it over on its back and put the ink on it. We're going to want to put make a little triangle here, so I'm going to give a significant size and amount of it, but I'm going to let it go off of the page. Letting things fall off of the page gives visual interest, and makes it seem like the paper has been cut out of a bigger piece. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm not going to put quite as much, but I'm going to do a trio of, or a triangle of this color. And kind of like if you're trying to fill up a jar with pebbles and rocks, you've probably heard that story, that you put the big rocks in and then you fill in with the pebbles. If you put if you put all the pebbles in and then try to put the big rocks in, it doesn't fit. But so start with the largest and we'll move down to the smallest. I'm moving on to my second color now, and I'm going to use the next size down, and I'm going to use not my darkest color, but my next I'm using my two middle colors and I want them to overlap. That is one of the things that doing a background, don't try and keep everything not touching. You want things to overlap. You want them to feel like they're supposed to be. You've just kind of thrown a handful of doilies down there. And again, because this is a larger stamp, I'm going to only use 3 of it. As we get down to the smaller stamps, we can begin to use them to fill in, and they're not going to be fighting with each other so much. So I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to use the lightest color. This is Harvest Gold. And again, I want things to overlap just a little bit. So I'm filling in my open places now. Now we're going to go with our smallest stamp here and my darkest ink. And the darkness of the ink gives it a little bit more weight. So even though it's smaller, it's going to visually stand out because it seems heavier. If things are bigger and lighter, smaller and darker, they have visual balance to them. Okay, so we want to do our stamping on our vellum, and as you can see in the original, I just stamped the So Very and For You. There are stamps that go with those the words, and so it works. I think it's a nice little stamp set if you're doing. I'm using a little bit of it. I think this has cornstarch or something in it, and it makes it so that we don't get embossing powder everywhere. The key to working with your, I'm using some Versamark ink here. The key to working with vellum and embossing powder is that it's a little more delicate than regular paper when you're doing stamping, but you really can, if you're careful and move your stamp around. Okay, I'm going to do the U. First I have all my stamps on the same block, and now I'm going to do the 4. With our heat gun, if you just move it and just don't let it set too long in one place, you can get a really nice effect. I have a little bit of scratch paper here, and I'm using some Adirondack Espresso. So I'm putting that on there, and then we'll tap it off. And if I have a little extra somehow or other, I got a little bit down on here, you can use your your paintbrush to knock that off. So the key to embossing on vellum is to let your heat tool heat up before you bring it over and aim it at the paper. So I'm letting it heat up, and then I'm going to kind of keep it moving. And if it's already hot by the time it gets over here and you keep it moving, it will melt your embossing powder pretty quickly for you. Okay? Lovely. Lovely, lovely. So you can see why, even when I cut this out and had it the first time, it didn't give me a really strong impression. But when I added this back into the space, the negative, doesn't that just stand out so much more? Now, with this thicker vellum, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to use some matte accents. It's like your glossy accents, only it's matte. And I want to put it all the way around. And because this is thicker, if I put it all the way around the edges, it's not going to, I'm not going to be able to see it so much, but I want to make sure that I've got all my little bits and pieces down. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to get it stuck down really well. And the reason that I want to do this is because then once I have this in place, I can smooth it out, and if I need to trim off the edges, I can do that. But if I get this in place to begin with, then the other stuff just is a little easier to make happen. And to get a really good, it to stick really good, you may want to do this step and then put some wax paper down and a heavy book or something on it so that it gets a really good seal. But I'm going to keep going for you. I'm going to use some quick dry adhesive. You might use your Tombow multi glue. You want just a really good paper glue to put this word down into that open space. And I really like this quick glue, but everybody has their favorite glue. So you can see I still have a little bit of curling up there. We're gonna stick that down in just a minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my word back into the empty. Hold on to that vellum word. We may still find something else to do with that. It just, for this particular project, it just felt like it needed a little extra oomph right there. Okay, so now that we have all this stuck down, and again, if I weren't doing this for videoing, I would let all this dry before I went on to the next step. But I want to bring this back and put just a bead of glue down there. Let that pick up. And I'm going to put a bead of my glue down here. And I found that this matte seems to work really well. Now on my original card, I felt like it needed just a little spot of color, so I cut two. This is 5.5 inches by 1/4 inch wide. I'm just gonna put a little glue on here. It's gonna hide any bits of that edge that I didn't measure exactly right. Put this down here. And then this is ready to pop onto my card. Very, very easy, but I think when you put vellum on, it just kind of takes things up a notch. I love that it softens the brightness of those colors, yet I can still kind of see all the variation that that stamp set has. And I really, really like how the Thankful stands out by doing the inset. This is definitely a technique that I'm going to explore some more, where I cut out a shape with a die and then replace it with another piece of paper. My mind has just gone a little crazy with all of that. I hope you will try both of these techniques, making your own background, stamping on vellum and embossing it. This is just fun. I enjoyed it, and I hope that it has given you some inspiration and given you some creative ideas for your own creative time. I'll be back soon. Thanks. Have a great week.